this video, we will be talking about Employment Equity Act. The word equity means equal. So now it focuses that all people must be treated equally in a workplace, regardless of the differences that people might have. It could be in terms of gender, could be in terms of race, could be in terms of color, sexual orientation, disability, religion. People supposed to be treated equally. Now we will be talking about the purpose of Employment Equity Act. We'll be having bullets that we'll be talking about. The first point is that it ensures the equal representation of all population groups of South African workforce in a workplace, and implementation of affirmative action. Now, affirmative action, it is a policy that was embedded by this new government to rectify the wrong that was done by that old government. Now, in terms of employing, now if you are employing people, you should employ, according to affirmative action, you should employ the previously disadvantaged when you are employing from that group. When we talk about previously disadvantaged group, we are talking about black women, we are talking about black people, we are talking about people from rural areas, we are talking about disabled people. So now when you employ, you need to employ first from that category of those previously disadvantaged people. The other point, it says people who do the same job, they need to be paid equally, regardless of if people that are doing the same job, they need to be paid equally.
We're partners. We have the same pay.
It promotes equal opportunity and fair treatment in a workplace. Opportunities should be given fairly in a workplace. The other point, it prevents discrimination in a workplace. To discriminate, there are many ways of discriminating. You can discriminate in terms of friendship, you can discriminate in terms of gender, so it prevents that because of that equity that we have in this Employment Equity Act. Then the other point, it protects employees from being victimized in the context of exercising their rights. If one is outspoken, speaking, it prevents those people to be victimized because it gives them the right to be able to express themselves, to voice out their opinion freely without victimization. The last point, it provides the possibility of workers to refer the unresolved issues to CCMA. Therefore, it relates a little bit with Labour Relations Act in that case. Then now we are going to talk about the impact of Employment Equity Act. Now the impact, you always remember that the impact is divided into, it could be the advantages or the disadvantage. But now we are going to start with the advantages, the positive impact.
Positive? Positive.
The first point says it promotes the implementation of affirmative action. You remember the policy that is just spoke about? Yes, it ensures that that policy, it is implemented. The second point, it prevents the unfair discrimination. The third point, it promotes equal opportunities and fair treatment in a workplace.
Say equal opportunity for all.
The fourth point, it encourages diversity in a business. By diversity, we mean different. So now when you are employing, you need to employ different categories of people. You need to employ people from different backgrounds. The richer people, the poor people, people from different province, from, your workforce supposed to have different categories of people. The fifth point, it encourages consultation between the employer and the employee. Both parties, they need to consult, negotiate issues. It promotes that Employment Equity Act. Then our last point, it provides all employees with equal opportunities during selection or during the appointments. When we are employed, people should be given an equal opportunity. Now let's talk about the negative impact, the disadvantages now.
Negative.
The first point that we'll be talking about, it says the implementation of Employment Equity Act, it is time consuming. If the employer wants to comply with Employment Equity Act, that will be time consuming. They have to, it's a burden. It gives a financial strain to the business to do that. The second point, the training cost of the business increase because of the employee that will need correct training regardless of the implementation of the EA. Remember, the law forces that the employer, when employed, must employ according to affirmative action. At times you employ one who is not knowledgeable, who doesn't have a skill of doing that. For example, if you employ from a person from rural area, that person doesn't know how to use computers and is not familiar with technology. So you need to educate that person so that be able to produce. Now, Employment Equity Act appointments may cause conflict in a workplace. Why? Because people, they're from different backgrounds, so people, they don't behave the same, the cultures, they're not the same, so conflict might arise in the business. The other point, at times the business may appoint someone who's not qualified on that particular position just because they are forced to use an affirmative action. Therefore, they employ that person, and that person cannot be productive and cost the business the profit of the business. The other point, the business may find it difficult to make appointments because of unsuitability. People they are not qualified, so it might take longer for the business to find that person, or they're going to end up appointing one who's not suitable for that particular position. For example, one is not a manager. Now, because they want to implement this affirmative action, then they employ one who doesn't have the management qualification, who doesn't know how to manage. The last point, the business, it is forced to submit the employment equity plan. Now, the employment equity plan, it is the structure that shows everyone how this business, it is transgressing. How are they changing? How are they trying to change from the previous things that were used by the previous government? Now, let us talk about the actions that are regarded as non-compliance in terms of Employment Equity Act, EEA.
Non-compliance will result in a penalty.
The first point, when you are denying people access to workplace based on a ground of any form of discrimination, it could be based off you don't allow one to enter into because of black. You don't allow one to enter there because of the language one speaks, because of gender. Therefore, that is an action that is regarded as discrimination. The other fact, when you're treating workers unfairly and incorrectly promoting people in a workplace, you promote just because this one is my sister, then I'm going to give this one a promotion because of, therefore, you are installing non-compliance. Compliance, the other point, when you are refusing to employ young women. Why young women? Because in future you think they are going to be pregnant. So you don't want to employ young women. Therefore, you are conducting non-compliance.
I'm pregnant.
Pregnant.
The other point, when you refuse to employ one because you know the status of that person, you've conducted a test to that person, then you find out that person is HIV positive, then you refuse to employ, therefore you are conducting non-compliance. You are conducting in non-compliance, the other point, when you are harassing or victimizing an employee in any form as regarded as discrimination. In any form. There are many forms that one can victimize one. Therefore, you are conducting non-compliance in terms of EEA. Those are the facts in terms of non-compliance.
All right, so what's the penalty?
Right now, let's talk about the penalties or the consequences if you've conducted in non-compliance according to Employment Equity Act. The business that do not comply with employment equity may receive a compliance order I think by now we are seeing the pattern. If you are not complying, definitely you are going to get a compliance order from court that you are not complying with Employment Equity Act. If you've missed the first video, skill development video, and the labor relation video, please go back and watch them and see the pattern in terms of the penalties. They are similar. Firstly, we said the business, they are going to receive a compliance order. Now, the second point, if still the business, even though they've received a compliance order, they're still conducting themselves like that. Therefore, they are going to have to be charged for not following the law by code of law. The third point, the business who neglect to comply with Employment Equity Act, therefore, they are going to receive large fines. Large penalties could be 200,000, 300,000 for not complying with Employment Equity Act. The fourth point, the Department of Labor may prevent that particular business who doesn't comply to do their activities, to sell whatever if they are selling, or to whatever. It depends with what is that business doing, but they are going to be prevented to conduct their daily day-to-day business. And the last point, the labor inspector can go to that business and interview each and every employee and find out last part that we will be talking about, the ways in which how the business they can comply with Employment Equity Act. The first point, the businesses, they are compelled, they are forced by law to display a summary of Employment Equity Act so that it is visible to everyone, exactly as in terms of Labor Relation Act. They need to place it where it will be visible, where one can see in terms of employment how the business they should conduct themselves. The second point, it provides an equal opportunities to all employees in the workplace. That's how they comply. The opportunities should be equal for everyone. The third point, the business should ensure that the employees are paid equally for the equal value of job. The fourth point, the implementation of affirmative action measures to promote the diversity. It ensures that there is a diversity. When we talk about there is a different categories of people in a workplace.
Diversity.
And the fifth point,
Compile
the employment equity plans that specify how affirmative action will be
implemented.
The workplace must represent the demographics of the country. Now, when we talk about the demographics, we are talking about to differ of your workforce in terms of the geographical places. The other one's from Pretoria, the other one is from Eastern Cape, the other one, those are the demographics. So your employment should reflect the demographics of the country. And the last point, the current employment policies or practices or procedures must be restructured in such a way that they accommodate the designated groups, so that it accommodates that demographic, though diversity, it accommodates everyone in a workplace. That is our last point. I'm very much appreciating when you are watching our video. I would appreciate if you could subscribe to our channel. Thank you very much.